Let's go, you sea chickens. It's time for another episode of that Groovy Scoobcast.
Your go-to audio hub for all things Scooby-Doo.
My name's Derek.
And I'm Shannon.
Today we're going to be talking about the Creepy Heap from the Deep, an episode from the Scooby-Doo Show. Last week, we talked about how you can only really watch this episode if you purchase it on iTunes. You can also find it on the free Scooby-Doo Microsoft app, but that's what we're going to be talking about today. But before we get to that, Shannon, it's time for the Mystery Machine match.
I think I have a fighting chance this week.
Do you?
I hope.
Okay. Well, as always, you can go first.
Okay. Complete the name of this Scooby's All-Star Laugh Olympics team. The Scooby blank.
Doobies.
Okay. Good job.
Thanks. All right. Scooby-Doo appeared in his own primetime special in 1980 called Scooby-Doo Goes Blank. Hollywood or Dollywood?
Hollywood.
Hollywood. Yes, that is correct.
I think that was the first Scooby-Doo movie I owned.
Really?
I think so.
You had a poor childhood.
Oh.
All right, next question.
What is Fred's nickname for Velma in the Scooby-Doo movie? Velma? Sorry.
It's Velma. What is it?
Velmy or Velmsters?
Velmsters.
Yep.
It's just Velma. Doesn't have
Velma.
a nickname.
She doesn't get a nickname.
All right. Which one of the four friends wears glasses?
Velma.
Yeah. Just to clarify, guys, we don't write these questions. They come from the Scooby-Doo trivia game. So sometimes we get good ones and sometimes we get really easy questions.
Sometimes I get them and sometimes I just don't.
Yeah. All right. What's your last question?
Who was the taller one of the pair? Weird or Boggle?
Oh, crap. I think it was Weird.
Oh, you're right.
Was I right? Yay.
I thought you were going to get that one wrong.
I've only seen the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo maybe once,
yeah.
So I don't really know all the characters that well.
That's why I was hoping I had a fighting chance.
Well,
I didn't.
Well, you should get this one because we watched this episode last week.
Okay.
In the dynamic Scooby-Doo affair, Batman and Robin join the gang in an effort against the Joker and what other nemesis?
The Penguin!
You are correct. So we got all the questions right?
High five!
Yay! That's awesome. Well, I'm still in the lead by 2 points total.
I think I could catch up one day.
We're keeping a tally of all of our points that we gain in the Mystery Machine match, so we'll see who's going to win at the end of this cycle.
It's probably going to be you.
It probably will. Well, that was the Mystery Machine match.
And Derek, if you think what I think you're thinking, then you're right. It is time for the Scooby-Doo review.
Yay! So we're watching the Creepy Heap from the Deep. It is an episode from the Scooby-Doo Show, and here is the premise for you. The gang is having a beach party when a bizarre monster emerges from the deep. Soon after, they meet an old sea captain who tells them about the monster, only to have it steal his soul.
It's intense.
For a second. I don't know. I wasn't super wowed by it.
I actually kind of liked it just because I thought it went really deep for something so simple.
What do you mean?
The whole point of the monster and what they were doing.
To smuggle out people from the country.
They were doing a lot, and I just think that was kind of I think the episode was kind of executed decently.
I don't know. I mean, I think what's really bumming me down about the episode was kind of the animation to be it. Again, it's the animation. And I know that it's just the times and Hanna-Barbera. I will say that it was better than the dynamic Scooby-Doo affair.
I think anything's better than that.
I found it to be a little better, but I think What a Night for a Night is still the best out of the three that we've seen so far.
Okay.
I think that the Scooby-Doo Show has a lot of really good episodes in it. Some of my favorites. It even has one of my favorite Scooby-Doo characters, Scooby-Dum. What are you smiling about me?
He's not my favorite at all.
He's not your favorite? Oh. Well, I can't wait to have an episode with him in it. Yeah, he's one of my favorites, actually. So I know that there's some really good Scooby-Doo Show episodes, but I don't really feel like this was one of them. I will note, one of the very first scenes, you see the Creepy Heap, rise out of the water and he growls, really intensely. And it made me think about the version of him that appears in the Scooby-Doo Night of 100 Frights video game. It was weird because in that video game, the Creepy Heap has like a female voice. And she's like laughing like hysterically like a teenage girl.
Well, and we do find out though, like the monster is different people every time. It's whoever your current...
I guess, but like it's just weird to compare the two because in this one it's like a snarling old man, and in the video game it's like a teenage girl giggling.
I want to know what the teenage girl did that she needs to be smuggled out of the country. That's what I'm interested in now. Don't care about anything else. So one of my first notes for this episode is that they didn't plan on being at that specific beach. And I just kind of want to like pride the gang for a second on being such optimists.
Optimists? Opportunists? What are you trying to say?
They took a wrong turn.
Yeah.
Ended up on a creepy beach. All that fog rolled in. Scooby and Shaggy still hopped in the boat to go fishing so that they could do like this big old picnic. Like, all this shit's going down, and yet they're like, no, we're still going to have our picnic. It's okay.
Yeah.
Like, we're on this ugly beach. There's a whole bunch of fog, but we're going to have a good time. And I just like, good job. Because I would have gone home.
I don't really understand, like, the idea of having a beach party at night.
Yeah, that too.
Especially in the fog. I mean, I can be an optimist all I want, but I'm going home.
Yeah.
At that time.
And I'm thinking maybe they weren't planning on having it at night, but because they took a wrong turn, like they just
have beach
kept
parties at night all the
driving.
time.
I don't know. Maybe that's a thing.
They do that all the time in the Scooby-Doo Where Are You series.
That's true. So maybe because they solve mysteries, they're just not scared of the dark like that.
Maybe.
They just don't have time during the day because they're so busy solving mysteries.
Mm-hmm.
So the only time to have a picnic is at night.
One thing I noted about the episode that it may be the case for all of the Scooby-Doo Show episodes, I'm not really sure, but I noticed in this one that it was really, really cartoony, like silly cartoony. What I mean by it, and I stopped taking notes about it after the first time, is that whenever Scooby or Shaggy interacted with like another animal, they were really exaggerated and oddly drawn animals. So like the first instance of that was when Shaggy was in the boat fishing and he has that huge fish that he was wrestling with. And I'm thinking, wow, this is really, really cartoony. That continues on later when Scooby and Shaggy and Velma, they encounter the hermit.
Yeah.
And they have that shark in the little Walter.
Okay.
I think.
I want to talk about the shark again, but the shark looked like a shark until it came out of the water.
Yeah.
And then it looked like a dolphin, but with like a shark fin. And then it made that dolphin noise, and I was just very confused on what was in that little bucket. But one of the things that I had written down for when they were in the boat is that, so first off, I wrote, that's one huge fish that Shaggy caught, because that would have been one hell of a seafood extravaganza.
Yeah.
Like, that would have fed everybody.
It was as big as him.
Yeah. And then I wrote, they didn't have paddles to get back home to shore. I mean, it turned out to not be an issue because the monster clipped them and they were able to, like, fly back. But if all had gone well, how were they going to get back?
How did they get out there?
I assume they just kind of pushed themselves out and just kind of let themselves drift.
back.
But you're in the water. You can't push off a land when you're in the water.
They're going to paddle.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Shaggy uses Scooby at one point as a motor.
Yeah.
So, like, he just bends him over the side of the boat and just, like, uses his tail as, like, a...
steerer.
Yeah. I will note that, like, when the monster comes and attacks everybody on the beach, you know, the gang's kind of running, and then you see the monster kind of standing by the mystery machine, which is in the background.
Yeah.
And it's, like, oddly, like, crooked, like, just standing on one side
wheels?
of... Yeah, it's standing on two
It was
wheels.
just chilling.
Tilted. And it happened in, like, more than one scene. It was, like, two cuts that you see that happen. I'm like, whoa! I think I actually, like, looked at you.
You did.
Just
You
like,
physically
whoa!
yelled.
And then they also just looked really weird when they were running as well. I just kind of noticed it was more the animation, I think. But then that house on the cliff.
I want that house, though.
Who thought to build a house there?
Me.
That foundation cannot be good.
I mean, I think a lot of houses are built on cliffs, though. Maybe not that unsturdy, but like...
That cliff was not prepared for a house.
My I feel like it was just as happy to have a house there.
You only see houses like that in cartoons. But then I also noted that this is one of the very few times I have ever seen the gang try and call the police the first time they encounter the monster.
I don't know. In the Night for a Night, they called the police.
No, they didn't. After they caught the monster.
Well, they were on their way to call the police, and then they accidentally caught the monster.
I don't know. Well, yeah, but that was after several encounters with the monster.
Yeah, that's true.
With the Black Knight. Like, in this instance, this is the very first time they're seeing it, and they instantly just go to the nearest house, they find an adult, and they're like, "Sir, can we use your phone? We need to call the police."
I think there's certain areas where you're like, I can't deal with a sea monster right now. I need to call the police. I can deal with scary men in night costumes. I can deal with, all this random stuff. I can deal with Batman and I can't deal with a sea monster. Somebody needs to come handle this because it's not going to be me.
Do you have any notes about Captain Clements, the man that owns the house?
I do after his spirit was stolen.
Okay.
Because he kind of just seemed like a random dude at first.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, oh, okay.
Well, I wrote down that he was the villain. That was my instant guess. I'm like, this guy's the villain. The way he's talking, like, he's definitely not a good guy.
Like the fact that he was just he was very calm with the fact that there's a sea monster running around.
He had a book.
Yeah.
With a bunch of illustrations in it.
Like, he was ready and prepared. I kind of just chopped that up to, I live right where the sea monster comes from, so I need to be prepared for it. Mm-hmm. But it's Scooby-Doo, so he's the villain.
Yeah. Well, when he gets attacked by the monster and he has his soul stolen, like, the gang find him and his house is all trashed. This is after they find that the mystery machine's all trashed.
Okay, hold on. Because I wrote that the monster needs spirits to live, obviously.
Yes.
When they go back down to the beach and they're like, oh, the mystery machine is trashed. The monster's back. We got to go warn him. And so they run all the way back up there. I put the creature wasn't at the house, so he must be fast. And then later on when we find that secret elevator, I was like, oh, yeah, he's the villain.
Yeah.
And then I wrote, that guy Captain Clems is creepy as fuck. And then I put, what the fuck, he woke up. And then I was like, why is he doing the bidding for the monster? Because he's just this soulless creature.
You completely just skipped over the fact that the monster stole his soul.
Oh,
I was going to say that.
Yeah.
No, he closed the door and he locked up everything, and then the monster's already inside.
Yeah.
And he just made the most terrified face.
Yeah, he was scary.
Okay, but can we talk about how much of a horror moment that was when they find his body just sitting in the chair. He has his hand hanging over the side of the chair on the table. I'm not sure if that was dust or something that he was writing into.
It looked like it was red. So let me pull out a page from Daphne. That's blood.
Is that blood? That's a clue. No, but he writes creature spirit. And, his face and everything, that was, something out of a scary movie.
Yeah.
That was one of the scariest things I've ever seen in a Scooby-Doo episode. But then, Fred's, freaking out. He's like, okay, we need to solve this mystery or something like that. And he's kind of facing the camera, it looks like. He's front-facing. And his ascot, looks really weirdly drawn. There's a lot of space between, his ascot and the blue collar of his shirt. I just thought it was a weird look for him. I'm being nitpicky, I know. Do you have any comments about Scooby and Shaggy and their disguises?
So I did. I actually wrote, them dressing up always seems to piss the monster off even more. Mm-hmm. So, why?
They dress up as hairstylists, and they take Captain Clements, who is right now possessed by the monster, and, they dull them all up, and then Shaggy goes, "You're uglier than ever."
Same.
So they're not getting good tips.
No. Well, and that's the thing. And then, he gets all mad. Okay, had you just run, he wouldn't be as pissed off. He might even leave you alone. But they hop in that scary elevator, and they get back down to the beach. Do you have any notes on that?
On the elevator?
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't really think it was a safe-looking elevator. It didn't look like an elevator at all.
Like that old-fashioned...
It's all made of wood. The door is not an elevator door. And I just love... I'm trying to imagine how that elevator, like, travels down to where it was on the beach. Like, how did you install that? Because that cliff is not, like, a straight shot. So I'm just wondering how on earth they accomplished that.
It's kind of like that Willy Wonka elevator.
Oh.
If you ever watched Willy Wonka.
Yeah, and it's obnoxious and not real.
Yeah. Well, neither is this.
But, you know, they go to chase the... Oh, they see the lights that are flashing out of the house and in the sea. So they start to actually go into the water, and Scooby pretends to be a horn as they're going into the fog.
I made a comment of who would think to follow the creature, because as far as you know, he just went back to, like, his little underwater cave. Mm-hmm. But they were like, no, we're going to go find him. And I'm like, he disappeared into a cloud of fog. But let's go find him.
Let's go find him. Or when they're in the fog. This is another note of mine where, like, it's so cartoony when Scooby pulls out that giant anchor.
Yes. Oh, but my comment there was, so suddenly they have a new boat because their other boat got clipped on and, like, broken.
I'm going to assume they took them from Captain Clement.
Yeah. They now have a new boat with a huge anchor and swim gear.
Yep.
Just conveniently.
Yeah. Or... with, like, the scuba diving, like, the first instance that they go underwater, because they weren't prepared to, I guess. Like, they only had the masks. They didn't have the full suits yet. So they're all just hanging out underwater, not wearing any kind of, like, suit or anything like that. So it's just weird seeing the gang, like, in their normal outfits.
Yeah.
Underwater, just hanging out.
Just chilling.
And, you know, they do a bunch of bullshit down there with the submarine. They go and hide in the first aid closet, and Scooby has his tail hanging out, and Velma's like, I've never seen a first aid cabinet with a tail.
My next note just says sea chickens, Velma.
Sea chickens? Why did she say that? No, you know what it was? I think they were ready to go back up or something like that, and Shaggy and Scooby didn't want to go, and Velma was like, let's go, you sea chickens.
So then my next note is random dude with a shark, ?
Oh, you're talking about the hermit.
Yeah.
So Velma, Shaggy, and Scooby encounter this beach hermit, and he has a pet shark named Walter.
But the shark, when it comes out of the water, looks like a dolphin and sounds like a dolphin, but has a very large fin indicating a shark.
His face is awkwardly placed on his body, too.
Well, I was thinking, like, maybe something along, like a hammerhead, or there's sharks that have, like, their faces on their, like, bellies almost. Mm. But those are, like, very deep sea sharks.
I was really confused by the hermit because when Velma, Shaggy, and Scooby, they were hiding in the house before they discovered the hermit. And the hermit finds them, and Velma's like, you should hide. There's a sea monster after us. And the hermit's like, he basically, like, said he is the monster. And then he made a noise like the monster.
Yeah.
I was so confused. I'm like, did he just admit to it? Is the monster, like, a separate, like, motive to what's going on with the lights in the sea? Well, I was so baffled. I'm like, whoa, this is a really hardcore Scooby-Doo story right now.
And after admitting that he's the monster, making a noise like the monster, he goes, okay, time to feed my shark, picks up Scooby, and tries to feed him to the shark.
Well, he mistakes Scooby for the slab of meat that was hanging on the plate.
I don't care. You're about to murder and admit to a crime in the same 2 seconds.
You psycho.
Random dude with sharks.
Meanwhile, Daphne and Fred are, like, on the beach, and they find a flimsy key. I don't understand what the flimsy key was about.
They mentioned it at the end, but I didn't really catch it.
I think what was going on was the bank robber guy that they catch. Well, so basically what the overall plot that the villains are trying to accomplish, they're basically taking fugitives of the law, and they're helping them get out of the country. So they disguise themselves as the creature from the deep and have him swim over to this other boat that's offshore. And then the boat, I guess, ships off somewhere out of the country.
Well, it, like, dyes your hair. And
they disguise you and everything. They change your appearance. So the guy that they're dealing with right now is a notorious bank robber. So when Daphne and Fred find this flimsy key, I'm assuming that the flimsy key was like used to break into the banks.
Possibly.
Like maybe it's like a skeleton key or something like that.
Yeah.
So, you know, they encounter the monster and the two of them are scared and they run back to the mystery machine and join the rest of the gang.
I did write down that Fred looked traumatized at the van. He was sitting with like his arms around his legs, like almost in like the fetal position, and he's just staring off into the distance while everybody else is talking, and then suddenly he joins back in and everything is okay. But
those are one of those moments where he's thinking about killing everybody.
It is. He looked traumatized.
Well, you know, then they're like talking about all the clues and everything, and Scooby's like counting on his paws, like the clues. And he's like, "What?" And then
what does that add up to?
5.
And then Velma, no, this time it's 0. He's like, what? You can't tell him that. He was so confused.
He was so proud of himself for being able to do the math. I don't know a lot of Scooby, or I don't know a lot of Scoobies. I don't know a lot of dogs that can do math.
Yeah.
He's just like 5.
But I got really excited because I thought this was going to be the first episode that we don't see them break a law. And then they broke onto the boat.
I don't know.
Okay, so like they pirated the boat because you can't just get on somebody else's boat. And even so, if you can, if that's not against the law, they went into the boat and like started looking at all the plans. And I feel like that's not necessarily legal.
I think it's debatable because the boat was being used. Like, the boat itself was being used to commit a crime.
Well, I mean, in that case, then them breaking into Miss Baker's house for the Batman one.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I think that's a gray area. I don't think anyone's going to prosecute them for that.
And I think if you're a good guy and you solve the crime anyway, then like they're going to just say, okay, whatever you did to solve the crime, it's whatever.
Yeah.
But I got excited because I thought they were finally going to solve a crime without breaking the laws. Yeah, I was like, wow, these guys are doing good. Oh, just kidding.
Well, when they are about to climb onto the boat and Fred's like, it's all starting to make sense. Like, he basically said that it's making more sense now than he thought it would when he got onto the boat. And that's when Velma's like, if you're thinking what I think you're thinking, Fred. And I just hate it when they do that shit. It's like, why are you keeping it to yourselves? Because clearly Shaggy and Scooby and maybe even Daphne don't know what's going on.
You're not with a group of masterminds. They don't understand you.
It's like, you all call yourselves detectives, but there's really only 2 people who are doing the work. The other 3 are just kind of there.
I'm just here to look pretty.
Well, I mean, in these early episodes, yeah, Daphne is kind of only there to look pretty. Which sucks, you know, because she has a much better character in later series.
Oh, yeah.
But, like, back then, she's kind of just there to show face.
They had to have a pretty girl.
I guess so. I noted that they were basically going to go back into the submarine that was at the bottom of the, I don't know if that was like of the sea or the cove or whatever. So they need to go back down to it. And Shaggy and Scooby refuse, so she offers them Scooby snacks.
I did write that down.
And she tosses the box of Scooby snacks out the window.
I said, first off, she gave that box of Scooby snacks up real quick. Yeah. Usually they fight, like 1, 2...
They bargain for
5. She's just straight up, how about this whole box? And they're like, oh, okay.
And then she tosses it out the window.
So I wrote, she gave up that box fast. Also, Daphne is rude.
They go down into the submarine again, and they are kind of looking around. I don't remember what they were talking about, but there was an animation error where Daphne, her lips were moving, but it was Velma's voice coming out.
Yeah.
That happens a lot between the two of them, I've noticed.
You know, women are just hard to tell apart sometimes. We all look the same.
They're all there. They're just objects. They're just plot devices. They don't contribute to the story.
No. I did write down Scooby with that spider. Same.
Oh.
There was like this spider that came out of nowhere and kind of just bopped him on the nose. And Scooby ran like hell. And
yeah.
I was like, same.
Same. Or what about the fact that Fred knows the difference between like a real torpedo and a remote control one?
Okay, and then with that, I said a remote controlled dummy, because that's what he calls it, is a remote controlled dummy.
Yes.
But then Scooby's like, oh, it's remote control, and like dummy implies that it's fake. And so he presses the button. Okay, if it's remote controlled, who is controlling it? Because it's flying everywhere.
Yeah. I saw the wildest thing. I actually yelled when I saw it. So after they see the torpedoes and everything, and they probably do other stuff I don't remember, Fred's just like, well, I think I have an idea for a trap. He's like looking right at the camera. And then they did like this transition where like the animation just like it spins. Like it spirals out of control, and they do this weird sound effect with it. It was so out of nowhere, and you don't see it anywhere else in the episode.
No, but then nothing really changed into the next scene.
Well, I mean, they were in the same room and they had the trap all set up. So I mean, time passed, but it was just so unexpected. I was just like, "Oh my god, what is that?" Like you looked at me and you're like, "What?" I'm like, "I'll talk to you about it later."
I was writing down about the dummy torpedo, and so then I was like, I missed it.
I was like so offended by it because it was just so out of nowhere. And really, like one of my last things I wanted to talk about, like, oh, I missed this part. So when they got onto the ship, like the big ship that they're smuggling people out of the country, when they go into the
room.
Yeah, that one room where they have all of the maps and everything in. They're looking at this poster that shows like a man that's wanted.
Yeah.
And Velma was just like, well, he looks much better here, which indicates to me that she's attracted to him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He was blonde too, so I'm assuming she's into blondes.
So
Fred.
I mean,
that's why she hangs out with the gang.
When they were doing the trap, when it was working, it really threw me off that like only one person, like both of them went through the trap at the same time, and then one got torpedoed, and then it bounced back, happened again, so that the other one could get shot through, and then somehow Scooby falls and accidentally goes through the trap, and I'm like, but then when they all land on the beach, I'm like, what was the goal? Because nobody was there to catch them.
Yeah.
Did you just assume that they'd be chilling there waiting for you? Because like they could have just gotten up and left. It's not like it was a traumatizing thing that was going to leave them paralyzed and like stuck there.
Well, I'll talk through the trap real quick. So basically what happens is like Velma, Shaggy, and Scooby like lure the monsters into the room, the sea monster and the possessed Captain Clements.
Doody-doo, I don't think you can catch me.
So they lure them in the room, and Fred pulls this net that captures the three of them and pulls them up while the two monsters run past them. And I'm not sure if they tripped and fell or if they were like, I don't really know what happens, but they basically fall onto this cart. The cart launches towards where Daphne's waiting to put them in the torpedoes. And yeah, I think Captain Clements went first, and then the table bounces off the wall, goes all the way to the other side of the room, bounces off that wall, comes back, and then sends the monster in. And then I was just pissed at Daphne because she mistook that Scooby was one of the monsters and then launched him as well. He's clearly not a monster, Daphne, and you know there's only two monsters.
Right.
What are you doing?
Well,
what are you doing?
And Fred even yells, launch 3. And then he's like, launch 3?
You guys are a bunch of idiots. These kids are all
the dumbest smart people I've ever met. So they get back on shore, and the police have arrived, and they arrested everybody on the ship. So I made a point. That was a lot of people.
Yeah, they had a whole truck full.
They had a whole truck full of people, and the two main masterminds weren't even in the truck yet.
Yeah.
And so what got me was that's a lot of people on the ship for just dyeing hair.
Well, you know, they have to operate the ship.
I guess.
And there were probably like 10 or 15 people in that truck.
Yeah.
There were a lot of people involved in this plan. You know, and then the episode finishes out with Shaggy and Scooby being scared off by this cartoony-looking crab, which again goes back to my point that this episode's really cartoony. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that was the Creepy Heap from the Deep. What was the rating that you gave it on the Scooby Snack-O-Meter?
I gave it a 6, because I actually did enjoy this episode.
A 6?
Yeah.
Why?
I liked it. Okay, so like you said, we start at 5. If you really hate it, you go down. If you enjoy it, you go up.
Yeah.
So I wasn't neutral about it. It wasn't just a 5. I actually did enjoy watching it. I don't necessarily know if I'd watch it again, maybe in like a little while. But I did enjoy it.
Yeah.
So it's a 6.
Well, I am giving it a 4.
Oh.
Yeah. It wasn't really something that I would want to see again. It wasn't awful. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen, but it wasn't anything that I feel like I would revisit unless I was forced to. The animation wasn't anything to, praise, and I guess the story was a little bit more complex than What a Night for a Night. I don't know, maybe it's just me. I'm not really into sea-themed monsters or episodes. I don't know, that's just me.
Okay.
But overall, yeah, I give it a 4. So looks like this episode averages out at a 5.
Fair.
And that was the Scooby-Doo review for this week.
So we are going to choose our episode for next week.
We're going to be randomly selecting one from the next series, which is Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo. You ready to do the honors, Shannon?
All right, let's spin that wheel.
And it is I Left My Neck in San Francisco.
Yay!
Yay!
I'm not a huge fan of Scrappy-Doo, so...
You're so excited then to see his introduction?
Yeah.
So this episode's the 10th episode from that series. It's actually from season... Actually, I think there are only 16 episodes in this series. So here's the premise for you. The gang head off to Alcatraz Island on a tour. When there, they meet the lady vampire of the bay, who resembles Daphne a lot. Is it her or one of the other tourists who are very mysterious?
I think it's Daphne.
Is it?
It's time for Daphne.
It's a time to bet. If you guys want to watch this episode before you listen in on the podcast episode when we're going to review it, you can watch this episode on the Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo Complete Season 1 DVD that was released a couple years ago. If you don't want to buy the whole set, you can also just purchase the episode on iTunes. Or if you don't want to spend any money at all, you can use the free Scooby-Doo Microsoft Store app. Bear in mind that app doesn't always have the best quality episode in terms of visual or audio, so...
But it's free.
It's free if you don't want to spend money, because we sure don't. So are you ready for this week's fun facts?
Yeah.
All right. So this week we're actually going to state a few fun facts about a specific character from the gang. This week we decided to do Daphne. Something really cool about her that many people don't really realize is that she's actually really smart. Very talented as well. She's actually capable of flying helicopters, driving motorcycles, surfing. She also does karate. She can sing, play the piano. She's actually a very well-rounded girl, in my opinion.
I mean, and not to downplay her at all, because I love Daphne, but she was raised with money.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure she learned how to fly a helicopter, and maybe not necessarily the motorcycle. That probably came with, her bad boy era. I'm sure she went through one.
Before Fred.
Before
she moves on to serial killer Fred.
And then, surfing, karate, singing, playing piano. I'm sure her parents put her in lessons.
Yeah. Well, she did come from a wealthy background. Her dad is the founder of Blake's Bubble Bath. It's basically like a soap company. It's really cool, too, with that, because I know that they keep that consistent across multiple parts of the franchise, that both she's rich and also they're rich because of Blake's Bubbles. I know that I think they first introduced that detail from a pup named Scooby-Doo, but it's actually even in Scooby Apocalypse in the comic books.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because she comes from a rich background there too because of her dad's business, which I think it was just called Blake's Bubble Bath in the Pup Named Scooby-Doo series, but I think it's just called Blake's Bubbles in Scooby Apocalypse, but it's the same concept.
Yeah.
A really cool thing about Daphne is that she actually comes from Scottish and French roots, like me. Well, not French, but Scottish. In high school, she was a cheerleader. She was also a theater girl, and she also really loves journalism. That's actually what she aspires to be, is a journalist. We see that in Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, Scooby Apocalypse.
I think she even did it for the live action.
No, she didn't.
No? I knew when they separated. I thought she went and did news.
No, that's when she did karate. Oh. Because she was tired of being danger-prone Daphne.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But here's a really cool fun fact that not a lot of people know if they don't read the comic books. So in the very first issue of Scooby-Doo DC Comics, there was actually a story about Daphne's aunt putting her in an insane asylum because she claimed that Scooby could talk.
Okay, I didn't know that one.
Yeah. I'm going to find screenshots of that, and I'm going to share it on Twitter.
Oh my gosh.
Like Daphne's like crying in one panel. Like, it was pretty cool. Really cool fun fact. So those are some fun facts about Daphne. Shannon, do you have anything else you want to say before we start to close out?
As we always say, you can follow us on Twitter. That's how you can talk to us and message us, and that is going to be at Groovy Scoobcast.
Aside from that Groovy Scoobcast, you can also communicate with us through Do Central. Do Central is a Tumblr blog and Instagram page. You can find those at Do Central. I mainly share like pieces of my Scooby-Doo collection, any news or reviews that I'm doing. It's a little bit more instant as compared to the podcast, but there's lots of cool Scooby-Doo stuff that's being shared there as well. And with that, we just want to thank you for joining us here on That Groovy Scoobcast.
Join us next time for a Scooby snack-filled time.
Thank you guys. Bye.
Bye.